很高兴，我代表这个对外关系委员会，很荣幸欢迎您给我们你的介绍。我们先请您给我们15分钟左右的这个报告，然后我们想提出给您一些问题。还没有开始以前，我应该介绍一下我们的组织的领导，这个 Peterson 主席 ，Gelb 总裁代表这个对外关系委员会，还有 Nicholas Platt 先生，他是亚洲协会的会长，还有 Winston Lord 原来的副国务卿，原来的我们组织的这个领导，还有这个 John Holden 先生 ，Holden 先生是美中关系全国委员会的会长，所以我们都很有兴趣，也很想听您的报告，非常感谢。
皮德森理事长、格尔布会长、科恩主持人、各位外交关系协会的会员、各位女士、各位先生，大家早安。
Chairman Peterson, President Gelb, Mr. Cohen, members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all.
首先，个人要向在座各位学者专家表达最崇高的敬意。长期以来，各位致力于台海情势跟区域和平的研究，不只丰富了国际关系跟外交理论的内涵，更为外交决策者注入连绵不绝的新思维。
First, I would like to express my highest respects to the scholars and experts present here today. Your long-term interest in the cross-strait situation and regional peace has not only provided abundant substance to international relations and diplomatic theory, you have continuously presented new ideas to foreign policy decision-makers.
200年前，美国第3任总统杰佛逊击败亚当斯总统，创造了美国政治史上第一次的政党轮替跟政权和平转移，也为美国的民主奠定坚固的基础。
200 years ago, the third American President Jefferson defeated President Adams to create the first alternation of parties and peaceful transition of power in the political history of the United States. It also created a firm foundation for American democracy.
在20世纪即将结束之际，2300多万台湾人民在中共文攻武吓以及国际瞩目之下，用爱跟勇气实现了第一次的政党轮替跟政权和平转移，为全球华人社会写下光荣的历史。
As we near the end of the 20th century, under tremendous international attention and despite Chinese threats, with love and courage, the 23 million people of Taiwan have realized Taiwan's first alternation of parties and peaceful transition of power. The Taiwanese people have written an honorable page in the history of Chinese communities around the world.
多年来，台湾以经济奇迹赢得举世赞誉。如今在世纪之末，台湾在以政党轮替的民主政治奇迹跻身世界民主化的潮流之中。个人相信，对自由跟民主、普世价值的福音，是建构美国跟台湾双边关系最重要的基石。
Over many years, Taiwan has won global acclaim for its economic miracle. Today, Taiwan is also part of the global wave of democratization with the political miracle of party alternation. I believe that the universal values of freedom and democracy have become the cornerstone of the bilateral relationship between the United States and Taiwan.
新政府上任近5个月以来，面对旧政权遗留下来的沉重包袱，以及停滞不前的两岸关系，无不以兢兢业业、审慎严肃的态度来加以面对。我们深知，台湾人民对新政府望志心切，国际社会 更对新政府如何来确保台海的和平拭目以待。因此，维持一个稳定、和平、安全的大环境，就成为新政府施政的首要目标。
Since the establishment of the new government nearly 5 months ago, I have faced the heavy burdens left by the old regime and the stagnating cross-strait relations with a cautious and serious attitude. We understand that the Taiwanese people have great expectations of the new government, and the international community is also waiting to see how the new government will ensure peace in the Taiwan Strait. Therefore, the maintenance of a stable, peaceful, and secure environment is the primary goal of the new government.
这也是为何个人自上任以来，在最短的时间内致力于稳定两岸紧张情势、巩固外交关系以及提升军心士气的主要理由。个人深信，只有确保国家安全跟外交地位之后，台湾才可以在一个安定、和平的区域环境中全心全力来进行各项的国内改革。
This is the main reason why I have worked to immediately stabilize the tense situation across the strait, solidify our diplomatic relations, and uplift the morale of our military. I firmly believe that only by ensuring our national security and diplomatic status can we create a stable and peaceful regional environment in which we can wholeheartedly pursue numerous domestic reforms.
在新世纪国际体系的发展脉络中，中国大陆的角色绝对不容忽视。作为一个正在崛起的区域强权，中国大陆的未来不只在政治上牵动着国际新秩序能否建立，在军事上更关系到一个和平安全的后冷战时代能不能够在亚太地区成型，更访问中国经济的自由化跟国际化，以及融入全球市场经济的过程，对全球化的发展所具有的关键性作用。
In the development of the international system in the new century, the role of mainland China cannot be ignored. As a rising regional power, the future of mainland China affects not only the establishment of a new world order, but the question of the formation of a peaceful and secure post-Cold War era in the Asia-Pacific region. Furthermore, the liberalization and internationalization of the Chinese economy and the process in which China is incorporated into the global market economy have determining effects on the development of globalization.
然而，作为一个潜在的所谓大国，中共未来的发展绝对不是展现在积极扩强军备，或者是以武力来强迫台湾就范。中国大陆应该从亚太地区的领导者的角度来认识自己的责任，而不是以打压台湾的国际生存空间、制造台海情势的紧张作为实现它所谓大国外交的手段。
However, as a potential so-called great nation, China's development is neither demonstrated by active military expansion nor in forcing Taiwan to submit. China must understand its responsibilities from the perspective of being a leader in the Asia-Pacific region. The means of realizing great nation diplomacy is neither by suppressing Taiwan's international survival space nor in creating tension in the Taiwan Strait.
自从当选中华民国第10任总统以来，个人以最大的善意跟诚心，向中共领导人持续传达两岸关系正常化的意愿。个人在520就职演说里边也强调，海峡两岸人民源自于相同的血缘、文化跟历史背景。我们相信双方的领导人一定有足够的智慧跟创意，秉持民主对等的原则，在既有的基础之上，以善意营造合作的条件，共同来处理 未来一个中国的问题。
Ever since my election as the 10th President of the Republic of China, I have used the greatest goodwill and sincerity to express to the leaders of the PRC my desire to see the normalization of cross-strait relations. In my May 20th inauguration speech, I emphasized the following. The people on the two sides of the Taiwan Strait share the same ancestral, cultural, and historical background, while upholding the principles of democracy and parity, building upon the existing foundations, and constructing conditions for cooperation through goodwill. We believe that the leaders on both sides possess enough wisdom and creativity to jointly deal with the question of a future one China.
有人质疑，北京当局迄今未曾对陈总统的善意做出积极的回应。陈总统是否因为这样而感到受挫？个人不但不会因此感到气馁，反而会以更大的耐心跟诚意来促进两岸恢复对话跟交流。
Some people ask me if I feel frustrated by the fact that Beijing has thus far not yet actively responded to my goodwill gestures. Not only am I not discouraged, I will use even greater patience and sincerity to promote the resumption of dialogue and exchanges across the strait.
在此，个人要再次的呼吁，两岸的领导人回到92年的精神，搁置彼此的争议，尽速恢复对话跟交流，如此才能够打开两岸的僵局，共谋双赢结局，实现国际对台海永久和平的期待。个人要再次的强调，两岸问题的解决跟台湾的前途，必须要尊重2300多万台湾人民自由意志的选择，因为尊重人民自由意志的选择，正是过程民主精神最重要的条件。
Here I want to reiterate my hope that the leaders on both sides can return to the spirit of 1992, putting aside differences to enable the resumption of talks and exchanges. Only then can we overcome the current cross-strait stagnation and jointly create a win-win situation, fulfilling international expectations for long-lasting peace in the Taiwan Strait. I want to emphasize again that the resolution of the cross-strait issue and the future of Taiwan must respect the free choice of the 23 million people of Taiwan, because respect for the people's free choice is the most important condition for the democratic spirit.
个人也要重申，新政府有意愿，也有能力扮演区域和平维护者的角色。新政府有诚心，更有善意，跟中国大陆展开全面的关系正常化。
I also want to emphasize that the new government is willing and able to play the role of a regional promoter of peace. The new government is also willing to normalize relations comprehensively with the other side.
世界上有将近200个国家，台湾是第19大的经济体，以贸易总排名，台湾是第14的大国。但是台湾却没办法参与包括联合国在内的许多国际组织。我们深觉国际社会长期忽略台湾贡献国际社会的意愿跟能力，如此会但使国际社会少掉一份的力量，台湾人民也遭受到不公平的对待。
There are nearly 200 nations in the world. Taiwan is the 19th largest economy and the 14th largest trader. However, Taiwan is not able to attend many international organizations, including the United Nations. We deeply feel that the international society has ignored Taiwan's will and capability to contribute to the world. This is not only unfair treatment of the Taiwanese people, but a loss to the international society.
诚然，中国因素是导致台湾国际空间受到压缩的主因，但是作为一个主权独立国家的领导人， 个人有义务也有责任拓展台湾的国际空间。个人在8月间访问台湾在中美洲及非洲友邦，就是以实际的行动证明，我们要以本身在自由民主、人权保障、经贸科技等发展的经验，来加强台湾跟国际社会的交流。
Even though the China factor is the major reason for the suppression of Taiwan's international space, but as the leader of a sovereign and independent nation, I have the responsibility and obligation to expand Taiwan's international space. My August visit to Taiwan's diplomatic friends in Central America and Africa is my action to prove that we must strengthen Taiwan's interaction with the world through our democracy, protection of human rights, and economic and technological development.
个人也要强调，台湾的政治民主对中国大陆人民来讲具有灯塔的效用，它有助于中国大陆学习如何承担作为一个大国的责任，两岸经贸的良性互动，对于中国大陆经济的国际化跟自由化，乃至于全球经济体制的健全发展，更具有建设性的影响。而避免兵戎相见，维持台海和平，则是实现21世纪亚太地区稳定繁荣的基石。
I also want to emphasize that Taiwan's political democracy has the effect of a lighthouse on the people of mainland China. It helps mainland China learn to shoulder the responsibilities of a great nation. Positive interaction across the strait has a constructive effect on the internationalization and liberalization of the mainland Chinese economy and on the healthy development of the global trading system. The avoidance of conflict and the maintenance of peace in the Taiwan Strait are the foundations to realizing Asia-Pacific regional stability and prosperity in the 21st century.
台湾跟美国之间的长久友谊是建立在民主、安全跟经贸等共同利益的基础之上。我们愿意在既有的基础之上，继续加强两国对彼此共同利益的努力。
The long-standing friendship between Taiwan and the United States is established on the common interests of democracy, security, and trade. We are willing to work to continue to strengthen these common interests.
台湾在5月20号产生了新的政府，美国也即将在下个月产生新的领导人。新政权的更迭势必将为美中台三角关系在新世纪的开展带来莫大的考验。个人相信，只有用更大的智慧、创意跟耐心，我们才能够克服新世纪的严峻挑战。
On May 20th, a new government was born in Taiwan. The United States will elect a new leader next month. The changing governments will certainly bring new challenges to the triangular U.S.-China-Taiwan relationship in the new century. I personally believe it is only with greater wisdom, creativity, and patience that we can overcome the serious challenges of the new century.
个人愿意在此跟各位共同勉励，也欢迎各位建议跟指教，谢谢。
As I share my views with you, I also welcome your comments and advice. Thank you.
Mr. President, that was an excellent opening statement, and appropriately it focused on international relations and Taiwan mainland relations.
总统先生刚刚是一个很好的演说，也是非常适切的将焦点集中在国际关系以及两岸关系。现在想进一步询问对新政府的期待。
You spoke of a new government, but haven't you really now got a new government since the resignation last week of your Kuomintang Prime Minister? In other words, people now are gradually beginning to understand there's been a recent transformation in your government and wondering what are the implications of this change? Are they favorable for international relations, for relations with the mainland, and above all, for the ability of your government to function effectively as the first democratic government in Chinese political culture.
我们知道，其实不只是新政府，而应该说是新兴政府，尤其是自从国民党籍的前行政院长唐飞辞职之后，对台湾的政局所带来的变化，想要请教有什么样的特别的意义，尤其是针对国际局势以及两岸关系，以及台湾新政府的有效运作，尤其是因为这个政府它象征着华人史上的第一个民主政府。
我们非常的有坚定信心，特别在10月上旬，我们做了局部的改组，挺清楚的，我们要展现一个新的局面，特别是行政院院长由民进党籍的张俊雄先生来出任，而且我们又把重点放在财经所长的局部改组，我相信对未来整个国内我们要形成共识，以及要来从事国内的各方面改革，我们充满无限的希望跟这个信心。
I have firm confidence. In early October this month, we made partial adjustments to our new cabinet. Essentially, we created a new situation in which the new premier is a DPP member, Mr. Zhang Junxiong, and we put additional emphasis on the role of the cabinet ministers related to economics and finance. Basically, this will enable us to form a consensus on domestic reform, and I am full of faith and confidence.
其实我们做这样的一个改组，仍然是秉持全民政府用人为才、不分党派、不分族群所做的一个改变，并没有因为唐飞院长的离开而减损了我们对全民政府的这一种信心。
Actually, this partial adjustment to our cabinet is still made in the spirit of the government of our people, which is we use the best people regardless of their party affiliation and their ethnic background. This spirit has not been reduced as a result of Premier Tang Fei's resignation.
所以我们对于两岸的政策，包括很多非常重大的议题，我们也希望能够由下而上来形成全民的共识跟朝野的共识。就像两岸的政策，我们目前仍然期待由中央研究院李远哲院长所主持的跨党派小组，能够凝聚国人的共识，特别是朝野的这一个共识，希望能够把这一个彼此的歧见，尽可能的把它缩小，作为未来呢个人在推动两岸政策非常重要的一个参考依据。
Regarding cross-strait relations and other important issues, we hope to achieve a consensus from the bottom up between the people as well as the different political parties. On the area of cross-strait relations, we still expect President of the Academia Sinica, Dr. Li Yuanzhe, and the super-party task force that he leads to form a consensus across parties to help us reduce the differences on this issue among our people. And I still expect that the consensus this task force can form will provide important considerations for our studies in creating our cross-strait policy.
在520新政府成立之后，台湾跟美国的关系可以说非常的密切，而且我们跟行政部门的沟通管道也一直畅行无阻，没有任何的障碍。我相信今天我们做了局部的改组，由民进党籍的张俊雄院长来重组这个内阁，跟美国的关系，我相信仍然会维持非常的顺畅，而不会有任何的影响。
Since the establishment of the on May 20th of the new government, Taiwan-U.S. relations have been closer than ever. In fact, the communication channels between us and the American administration have been very smooth without any obstacles. And I think the partial adjustments in our cabinet with the new administration here led by DPP's Mr. Zhang Junxiong, under his leadership, I believe that our relations with the U.S. will continue very smoothly.
Will there be a new policy orientation? For example, are you now beginning to emphasize more entry into the United Nations? Your October 10th National Day speech, I think, was the first one by a president of the Republic of China on Taiwan that did not call for reunification with the mainland. Is that accurate, and are there other changes in policy underway?
会不会有新的政策走向？例如说，会不会更加的强调参与联合国？例如说，总统10月10号国庆的演说，是中华民国总统首次没有提到跟中国统一这样子的讲法，这是否属实？会不会有其他政策上的调整或改变呢？
基本上我们没有做改变的准备，而且我们对于两岸政策的思维跟做法前后也非常的一贯，也就是说，对于两岸的政策，新政府完全是以520个人的就职演说作为一个基调。
Basically, we are not prepared to make any serious changes. On cross-strait relations, our policy has been consistent. Basically, our new government, the tone of our new government's cross-strait policy has already been set by my May 20th inauguration speech.
至于参加联合国，我相信这是台湾2300多万人民绝大多数共同的愿望。所以，作为台湾新的领导人，当然必须要顺应疫情，而且能够依照民意来这一个施政，来这个行事。所以我们相信，这是台湾人民真正的声音，希望能够有机会重返联合国，来善尽国际社会的责任。
As for joining the United Nations, I believe it is the wish of the 23 million people of Taiwan. As Taiwan's new leader, I must go by the will of the people because I believe that this is the true voice of the people. We will continue our campaign to join the UN and because we believe this is our international responsibility that we wish to fulfill.
Could we have a first question, Professor Andrew Nathan of Columbia?
哥伦比亚大学黎安友教授。
Nathan from Columbia. Mr. President, thanks for meeting with us, and B. Kim, thanks for translating. Although as you reviewed in your remarks to us, that you made a number of conciliatory statements in your May 20th inaugural address, nonetheless, the PRC has not taken you up on that, and as far as I can see, the relationship across the strait is in a stalemate. And my question to you is, you've articulated today an attitude of patience and sincerity, but based on your analysis of Beijing's policies, do you think that the stalemate situation is dangerous? Or do you believe instead that Beijing will reciprocate your attitude of patience and allow the current freeze or lack of progress in relations to go on indefinitely? Thank you.
谢谢总统。总统在刚刚的演说里面提到，从520就职以来，不断的向北京提出和解和善意，但是北京至今并没有积极的回应。那么我认为两岸关系现在仍然处于一个僵局之中。那么请问总统所提到的耐心以及诚意，就您对北京政权的了解，您认为这个僵局是危险的吗？
北京在台湾内部所做的一项民意调查显示， 请问台湾人民目前最关心的议题是什么？提到所谓的两岸问题，其实所占的比例不到3%。换句话说，有关两岸问题的处理，在以前曾经是陈水扁总统及所属的政党民进党的最大罩门，而今天由于我们的努力，由于大家的关注，以及人民的谅解与支持，以及我们抛出了最大的诚意跟善意，一切以520年的就职演说为基调，至少把两岸的紧张情势有所缓和，能够稳定两岸的关系，这是我们认为未来能够进一步突破跟前进非常重要的一股动力。
According to recent public opinion polls in Taiwan, when people are asked about the issue they are most concerned about, the issue of cross-strait relations came up with less than 3% of popular opinion as considered the top priority issue right now. Apparently, even though in the past the issue of cross-strait relations has been seen by the public as the weak point of myself and of my party, the DPP. However, after our hard efforts and after much attention from all, as well as the public's support, including our gestures of goodwill and patience, as well as the tone set by my May 20th inauguration speech, the tension has certainly been reduced and relations across the strait have been stabilized. I believe we are in a very important, this provides an important foundation for moving forward.
目前看来，两岸的局势能够暂时的稳住，就能够带来未来无限的希望。所以，个人并不认为目前两岸的局势是危险的，但是我们仍然必须要有这一个诚意跟耐心。两岸的领导人仍然必须要秉持善意的和解、积极的合作、永久的和平，作为未来共同努力的目标。也许我们可以拿出最大的智慧跟善意，共同来处理未来一个中国的问题。我们可以试着找出彼此都可以接受的有关一个中国的含义。
The stabilization of the cross-strait situation and the reduction of tension gives me great hope for the future, and I will continue to deal with cross-strait relations with an attitude of patience and goodwill. We certainly hope that goodwill, reconciliation, active cooperation, and long-lasting peace can become the common goals of the people and governments on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. We also expect the leaders on both sides to utilize their wisdom and creativity to jointly deal with the question of a future One China. I also hope that we can both find a definition of One China that can be acceptable to all.
We're going to have Professor Donald Zagoria now of Hunter College.
Mr. President, good morning. Mr. President, you have just referred to a future One China as a goal towards which you are striving. But on the other hand, some DPP spokesmen and leaders have said that One China is only one possible alternative for the future. Since the mainland and many Americans are very carefully examining your phraseology on this question of One China, I wonder if you could clarify that. Is a future One China what you are striving for, or are there many other possibilities?
总统刚刚提到，希望两岸共同来处理未来一个中国的问题，但是民进党里面有许多人士表示，一个中国只是选项之一。您知道，在大陆以及美国有许多人都非常仔细的观察您的每一个说法，因此想要请总统澄清，再进一步说明未来的一个中国是您的目标，还是只是其中的一个选项？
我们已经多次的强调， 第一呢，海峡两岸的人民有共同的历史背景，跟文化血缘关系，当然也有共同的宗教信仰。就像个人的祖先也是来自中国大陆福建省诏安县，我相信我们有这样的一个特殊关系，我们必须要非常的珍惜。但是我们也相信，海峡两岸分隔这么久，我们生活的形态也是差距那么大，未来该怎么办？个人认为，有关未来一个中国的问题，我们确实应该要拿出海峡两岸人民的最大智慧跟创意，秉持民主对等的原则，共同来处理。我也坚信，有关于一个中国的问题，我们一定可以努力来找到能够为双方面都能够接受的这一个含义。
I have said, I have emphasized many times that the people across the strait share a common historical background. They also share common ancestral and religious backgrounds. Like, for example, my ancestors came from the Fujian province in China, and I believe we must cherish this very special relationship. But the two sides across the strait have been separated for so long, and there are very big differences in the ways of life across the strait. So I have said that on the question of a future one China, the leaders on both sides must exhibit the greatest wisdom and creativity, and on the principles of parity and democracy, we can jointly deal with this issue. The issue of a future, furthermore, on the issue of a future one China, I believe that we can both work to find a definition of one China that can be acceptable by all.
我们也特别注意到，92年两岸接触对话的过程，有关于一个中国的问题，确实在当时有过讨论，但是最后并没有一致的结论，所以我们才提出来，我们如果有诚意、有善意，我们可以回到92年的过程，92年的精神，那就是这一个对话。交流、搁置争议，只要把不一致的这种争议暂时摆在一边，我们能够立即重启协商的大门，开始对话交流。我们相信绝对可以拉近彼此的这个距离。我们可以在异中求同，我们就可以解决很多的这一种歧见。
I have also noticed in the process of the 1992 cross-strait dialogue, at the time the issue of one China was discussed, but no consensus was derived on this issue. So I say today that we can go back to the spirit of 1992. What I mean by this is the spirit of putting aside differences to enable dialogue and exchange, as well as enabling the resumption of cross-strait dialogue. I believe this will pull the two sides closer, and we can find commonalities in our differences.
Elizabeth, the economy of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Mr. President, thank you very much for speaking with us this morning. I'm wondering if you could articulate for us a more specific vision in some ways of normalization of relations with the mainland. Does it include, for example, the establishment of 3 links? I saw on Friday a report that from Tian Hongmao that you were going to pursue this, but that Taiwan's national economic and security must be preserved at the same time. So I'm wondering, what steps concretely do you see, in addition to the resumption of dialogue, to advance the relationship with the mainland?
想请总统进一步说明对于两岸关系正常化的一些具体的想法，是否是包括两岸的3通？我上周五听到台湾的田宏茂部长提到，前提是国家安全以及经济安全。那么想请教总统，对于两岸关系正常化，除了对话之外，有哪一些具体的步骤呢？
两岸关系正常化的第一步，我们希望能够先完成两岸经贸关系的正常化。所以，我们希望能够在台湾的国家安全可以确保的大前提之下，能够依照这一个市场的法则，秉持比例原则、互惠原则，全面的来检讨目前有关台湾对中国大陆的经贸关系，当然也包括三通的议题。
I have said that the first step to normalizing cross-strait relations is the normalization of trade and economic relations across the strait, under the precondition that Taiwan's national security is maintained, and also in accordance to market functions and the principle of mutual benefit. I believe we can reevaluate the current government policy on cross-strait trade.
我们目前已经正在积极来规划这一个小三通，希望在年底左右能够对外来这个开放。但是我们认为，有关于两岸经贸关系的正常化，不只限于金马地区的小三通，也应该包括大家所关注的大三通。所以，我们目前已经做好了准备，只要海峡两岸大家能够坐下来，大家愿意对话，愿意交流，愿意搁置争议，我相信随时我们可以针对三通的议题来做这一个协商。我们相信很快的，我们就可以美梦成真，从推动三通到完成这一个三通。
Right now, we are actively planning for the mini three links, and we hope to open up the mini three links by the end of this year. But I know normalization requires not only the mini three links between our offshore islands of Quemoy, Matsu, and mainland China. We must consider the major three links. In fact, we are ready and prepared anytime, as long as the two sides are willing to sit down and dialogue by putting aside differences. We are ready anytime to negotiate, and I believe that soon our dreams will come true. From planning the three links, we will soon see the opening of the three links.
Stephen Yates of the Heritage Foundation. Please, now we're running out of time. We got 15 minutes. Keep your questions short. We'll hope the President will keep his answers short.
Mr. President, I wonder if you could follow on the spirit of normalization of economic relations and comment on what plans your government may have in meeting with the mainland counterparts at the upcoming APEC summit, and if there are follow-on plans to move on from there as both of your economies move into the World Trade Organization.
延续经济正常化的话题，想要请问总统，针对即将在APEC 举办的元首会议，我方的官员跟对方官员会面的有没有什么特别的计划？以及在两岸加入 WTO 之后，对于经贸两岸之间的经贸关系有什么样的影响呢？
首先，如果要问我个人的意愿，当然我非常希望能够有机会亲自参加在原来所举行的今年度亚太这一个经济合作会议的经济领袖会议，但是我知道非常的困难，所以在日前我也特别指派我们新任的行政院副院长，我们这一个能够代表本人亲自与会，因为赖英照副院长本身既有这一个法学素养之外，最主要他有非常丰硕的财经的经验，目前又是我们行政院财经小组的召集人。我希望赖英照副院长能够有机会代表本人亲自参加。
My personal hope is to be able to personally attend the coming APEC Leaders Summit in Brunei. However, I know it is difficult for me personally to go. So a few days ago, I appointed our new Deputy Premier to attend on my behalf. Our Deputy Premier, Lai Ying-zhao, not only does he have a legal background, he also has much economic experience. He is the current convener of our economic policy team, and I think he can adequately represent me there.
其实有关于 WTO， 我们也一直期待盼望 海峡两岸都能够在今年年底左右能够同时加入世界贸易组织。我们也认为，让中共能够加入，能够接受国际这一种规范，能够更加的自由化跟这一个国际化，绝对有助于中共内部的民主化。
In regards to WTO, I do hope that both sides can accede to the WTO at the same time by the end of this year. Of course, I also hope that by joining, China will abide by international rules and norms, and the further liberalization and internationalization of China's economy, I do expect will also bring further democratization to China.
如果中共有诚意的话，我们也认为彼此可以透过协商。我们并不认为排除条款应该适用于对中国大陆。
And if China is sincere, I think through negotiations we can eliminate the use of the exclusion clause against China in the WTO scenario.
Okay, we're going to have Nicholas Platt of the Asia Society.
Good evening, Mr. President. This is a question about the realities of cross-straits economic relations. We know that your predecessors were placed restrictions on large-scale investment in the mainland, and that you yourself, I think, share those concerns. We also know that mainland and Taiwan, despite the tensions, are major trading and investing partners. I simply want to know what the trends in trade and investment have been, the figures, since you took office.
想要请问一个两岸经贸关系的现实问题，您的前任对于台商对中国大陆的大型投资有一些限制，我们的了解是您也同意他们一部分的顾虑，但是事实上即使两岸关系紧张，经贸关系还是非常的活跃，因此想要请问，自从您就职以来，这些数字有什么样的发展改变呢？
我们无可否认的，两岸的经贸关系只会更加的密切，不可能会渐离渐远。
We cannot deny that the economic relationship across the strait will only get closer. We cannot move further apart.
所以，对于以前总统邓辉先生所提出来的所谓借机用人的政策，个人并不认为玩文字游戏有太大的意义。我还是要再一次的强调。如同刚才我所说的，只要在台湾的国家安全这一个确保没有问题的大前提之下，我们绝对会依照市场的法则，秉持比例互惠的原则，全面来调整目前政府对中国大陆的经贸政策。
And in regards to the former President Lee's so-called avoid haste and be patient policy toward China, I think it is not meaningful to play word games right now. I just want to re-emphasize that what I said earlier, and that is under the condition that Taiwan's national security is maintained in accordance to market functions and the principle of mutual benefit, we are willing to readjust our trade policy toward China.
Could we have John Holden, President of the National Committee on U.S.-China Relations?
陈总统晚上好. Good evening, Mr. President. Some people have speculated that an arrangement with the mainland can only be made after democracy or a multi-party system has been instituted in China. Others have speculated that if that were to happen, the situation across the straits would in fact become more dangerous, as you would have perhaps unleash nationalistic forces in the mainland. What is your view on this question? Do you believe that the current leadership in Beijing is one with whom you can negotiate a satisfactory resolution of this problem? Thank you.
有些人认为，要能够与中国大陆达成协议，需要等中国大陆民主 而且实施了多党政治以后，但是也有一些人认为，这样的话，反而会更危险，因为这等于是开启了这个民族主义盛行的这个门。就总统的观察，您认为中国大陆现有的领导是否是您认为能够跟他们协商，达到一个能够令人满意的协议的对象吗？
当然，我们随时在做这样的一个等待。我也相信机会绝对是有的。也许海峡两岸整个制度有所不同，在台湾的社会民族多元，很多公共议题的形成是由下而上，而不是总统说了算。但是在中国大陆完全不一样，所以也因为民族开放不是那么样的彻底，常常有些政策的形成是由上而下，所以有时候呢要来展开跟台湾方面的进一步协商，以目前这样的一个机制，其实也不是完全的不好。
Actually, we are waiting for this to happen, and I do believe that there could be an opportunity. Right now, across the strait, we are living under very different systems. Taiwan is a democratic and very pluralistic society, and our decision-making mechanism here is from the bottom up, while the public has much say in this process. Of course, in China, it is very different. Their decisions are made from the top to the bottom. And maybe because of this, it would be possible for further negotiations. I don't think it would be such a bad arrangement.
其实目前对中共来讲，只在一念之间。如果说能够有一个正确的认识台湾，很多的事情就可以迎刃而解。简单的讲，那就是今天如果中共的领导人想要以孤立陈水扁总统、孤立台湾的新政府作为解决两岸问题的妙方，我觉得这样的一种想法跟做法绝对是严重的错误。
For China, I think it is a matter of will, and if they can accurately understand Taiwan, I think many problems can be resolved naturally. But if they try to isolate me personally, or if they try to isolate the new government, I don't think this is the way to go about it. And this mentality is definitely wrong.
如果说陈水扁主政的期间都没办法有所突破跟开展两岸新的一页的话，那我相信等陈水扁不再做总统，今天换成另外其他不同的政党来主政，我相信情况绝对不会比现在更好。
Even if during my term I'm not able to achieve any breakthroughs or turn a new page in the history of cross-strait relations, I don't think that if any other leader from a different party were in my position, the situation would be better.
Beijing has described themselves as prepared to receive you to discuss everything. Everything is on the table. You have described your attitude as one of great flexibility, even including the so-called one China question. Could you tell us precisely what it is that Beijing must now say to enable you to get on the plane and go there?
北京现在形容自己是准备好什么话都可以谈，什么议题都可以拿上谈判桌。而总统您也不断强调您的弹性，包括针对一个中国的原则。您能不能清楚具体的说，你在等待他们说什么？他们说什么之后，您就可以坐上飞机飞到北京去呢？
其实不一定要坐飞机，也不一定要飞到北京，也不一定要由陈水扁个人出面，其实我们已经做好各方面的准备，随时可以重启协商的大门。
Actually, I wouldn't necessarily have to fly to Beijing, and I don't think it has to be me personally going to China. In fact, we are prepared at any time to resume dialogue with the PRC.
现在问题在 中国大陆，他们预设了前提，一定要怎么样的一个条件之下，才愿意重启协商的大门。但是在台湾，我们并没有这样的一个条件，也没有这样的一个预设立场，所以现在两岸重启协商大门的最大障碍不在台湾本身，而在中国大陆方面。
I think the problem is in mainland China because they have set a precondition to the resumption of dialogue. In Taiwan, we have no precondition, so I think the obstacle is not here, but on the other side in the mainland.
所以我说，我们可以搁置争议，先对话，先交流，就可以形成共识，拉近距离。纵使说不搁置争议，而要谈争议也没有关系，但是只要坐下来，我们就可以有更好的结果。
And so I say that we must put aside differences and enable dialogue and exchange. Then we can gradually form a consensus and pull each other closer. Even if they don't want to put aside the difference, I'm willing to talk about our difference. But as long as we can sit down, I think things will be resolved.
Our time is approaching its end. I'm going to take the prerogative of the chair and ask the last question. What do you think of the United States government policy that will not permit you to come here to talk to us in person?
我问最后一个问题您对于美国政府现行的政策，也就是不允许您个人到纽约去跟外交协会进行这场演讲，有什么样的意见呢，或者感想？
也许下一次有机会到纽约，但是不一定有机会能够到我们外交关系协会。我希望大家共同努力，希望下一次能够到纽约，又能够到外交关系协会，跟大家来致意、来致敬、来做进一步意见上的交换。谢谢。
Maybe next time I can travel by New York, but I don't think I can necessarily go to the council. I certainly hope to have the opportunity to not only go to New York, but also to visit the Council on Foreign Relations, to pay my respects, and also to further exchange our ideas and get your great advice.
我确信，我到纽约，到我们外交关系协会的这个可能性，可能会比到北京的可能性还会大一点，还会快一点。
And I do believe that my chance of going to New York and speaking at the council may be greater than my chance to go to Beijing.
You've given an admirable account of yourself this evening. Your time, Mr. President. We know that as an experienced lawyer, you're more accustomed to asking questions than answering them. But you've answered them well. We're grateful to you for your time and your enlightenment to us, and we hope we will see you here in person before long.
谢谢。你们先过去，先这边，先排队，这边就排。来这边这边。你们站着，先过来。先排这边，先这边。哎，面条这边。那个后面那个。那个同学没看到你，你要到前面来一下。左边啊，站起来跟原谅。左边。好，谢谢啊，好，谢谢啊，谢谢，晚安好，辛苦大家好，谢谢。好的，这样一点。